Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. I hope everyone is doing well out there tonight. You had yourselves a fantastic day, and I hope everyone had a great weekend as it comes to an end and about to head off into another work week. And speaking of our work week, we're going to talk about what's going to happen weather-wise for your week, and there's going to be a lot of weather. System is going to move from west to east, like pretty much all weather does. And it's going to bring some widespread impacts to the lower 48. Almost every state could see some form of impact from this storm system. Some areas less or more than others. We're going to talk about who could see some severe weather, some winter weather chances, and break it all down for you folks in pretty good detail. And then after we do that, we're going to spend a little bit of time on a system we are already watching for the very end of February, like the last day of February into the first few days of March. This system has the potential to be more significant than the one right out in front of us. But we're not going to get too lost in the details on this because we need to figure out what's going to happen right out in front of us. But this one is showing signs as of right now that it could be a big one. So we'll speak on what we know on that and get you guys covered. And of course, it's probably going to be a pretty active week. There'll probably be a lot of two-a-days with the videos, just trying to figure out what's to come. It looks like things are certainly about to become much more active. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I only heard really one person say something about how the videos were a little blurry. The video was a little blurry this morning, and I kind of tested some things, and sure enough, it did, for whatever reason, by default, come up in like 240p. So remember, the videos I make is in 1080. It's not anything higher resolution than that. It's in 1080. So make sure you mess with the settings on YouTube. Sometimes it has to do with the signal that you're watching a video with. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's a YouTube thing. And every once in a while, it could be on my end. My setup is very average, guys. So for you regulars that tune in, if you notice any kind of difference with my volume, the visuals, please let me know. It helps me out so I can double check and tweak things. But there's nothing fancy about my setup. It's very average. It's probably a lot more average compared to the other YouTubers out there that do the weather, and that's just how it is right now. That's all I got. That's what I'm working with. And you guys will have to let me know if something seems off. So thank you all for the feedback on that. But just make sure the settings are on 1080, because a lot of times if you just jump on the video, it defaults with I believe 720. So make sure it's in 1080. It comes up in 1080. So anyways, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. And as always, I never have a chance to really go over the comments on the weekends. I will catch up with everything tomorrow afternoon. Let's get rocking and rolling. So the country out there right now, the lower 48, is pretty quiet. There's a little action in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest. The cold front really hasn't oozed in yet. It's starting to, so there's not a lot of cold air to really work with anywhere out west, really anywhere in the country, to be honest. So it's pretty quiet this evening to round off our weekend. Enjoy the quietness. It's not going to be like that for long. Significant winter weather event coming for a lot of people out west, especially, and obviously those higher elevations, but even some of the lower elevations could get a little bit of snow. And then all this will move from west to east. Central U.S. pretty quiet. Eastern U.S. pretty quiet. So watches, warnings, and advisories. You can tell there's something big coming, right? By all these colors on your screen. You got the red flag warnings. They're very bright on your screen, indicating that hot pink color right there. The more muted pink color, regular pink, is the winter storm warnings. It's getting kind of dry in the middle of the country along the high plains, and you mix that with the winds, and there's just a little bit of a fire danger out there, so just be careful with that kind of stuff. This brown color, that's high wind watches. The more mustard color right here, that's high wind warnings. Winds are already picking up right now. Winter weather advisories are in this purple color, and there's a few counties in Minnesota and North Dakota that do have winter storm watches. So we're watching out for all of this. There's a lot coming up. There really is. It's already getting very windy out there. And basically, a cold front associated with this trough digging in out west is basically going to bring a widespread winter storm for folks out west. So let's speak out west first. So we'll start off tonight, like later this evening, here in the next few hours. All this moisture that we see on the radar right here is going to continue to ooze south and then southeastward. So we kind of keep this going. We take it all the way to about our Monday morning. You can actually see where this cold front is. It's pretty impressive showing up here on the HRRR model. You see this kind of darker line of blues right in here. That is actually the cold front. Cold air oozing in behind it. So at this point, as we're waking up tomorrow morning, the cold front's making its way through southern Oregon. It's about halfway through Idaho, and it's working its way through Montana. A lot of areas, if you're struggling with just seeing rain, you might change the snow depending on your elevation and all those typical things out west. We do have some energy that's going to bring some rain to the southern and central California coastline also tomorrow. I'm not going to stay on that very long. I don't think this is going to be a significant event for you folks, but you guys don't typically see as much rainfall and precipitation as other areas of the country, but definitely expect kind of a rainy start to your week and Monday down here in the California coastline, but it might not be that very widespread. But as you can tell, we're getting into about midday tomorrow. A lot of snow flying around across the northern Rockies, heavy snow in the Cascades. Some snow starting to pile up here in the Sierra Nevada. We're even starting to get some precipitation showing up ahead of the main cold front here in the Rockies here in New Mexico and Colorado. But we continue to keep this going. This cold front continues to progress southeastward associated with this trough. And, the precipitation is kind of just everywhere. It's very widespread, but where it's falling, it could be pretty intense and associated with some pretty strong winds. And we're getting into later tomorrow evening. For a Monday evening, just widespread snows flying around pretty much everywhere in the northern Rockies. Lower elevations might just stay rain, but this system's not going to be that disruptive, that I would say significant as far as those snow totals in the lower elevations, just because there's colder than average temperatures moving in, but it's not like super cold to the point where you're going to get several inches of snow in like Seattle or Salt Lake City or Denver. I do think we'll get some accumulating snow in those areas. We'll actually zoom into those regions here in a second. But we kind of keep this going all the way into our Tuesday morning. And the storm, for the most part, begins to taper off, but then we can start to get some snow flying around in the higher elevations, the Rockies of Colorado. And this is where we can get a little bit of snow as we're getting into our Monday night, Tuesday during the day, maybe around the Denver area and places like that. And we could get some snow flying around in the Salt Lake City area too. So just the system's going to basically move in from the northwest to the southeast. So as far as snowfall totals, as always, we'll take a look at that broad look. And I know this doesn't help many people out, just because it's a very wide look at things. And it doesn't really say snow for who. I wish I had the time, and I've said this many times, to really just pull up these individual graphics for certain areas out west, kind of like what I do for the central and eastern U.S., but man, it would just take so long to prepare these videos. But I don't want to throw myself a pity party or anything. I try to pride myself in to getting very detailed for you folks, but the general theme from this is several inches to several feet of snow in the Cascades. This will be a significant event for the Cascades. It's already beginning right now. Rockies of Idaho, Montana will get snow, even a little snow in Helena will fall in Salt Lake City. Denver will get some snow from this also. This is between now and Wednesday morning. So just the common theme, higher elevations, a lot of snow is going to fall. And, you just got to stick to your local sources when it comes to what elevation you have to be at. But, let's zoom into Montana and, just the lower elevations down into here, like an inch, 1 to 2 inches of snow. But you just get a couple thousand feet up in the air, a couple thousand extra feet up in the air, I would say, because everybody's elevated out here. The snow could pile up quick. So, Great Falls, an inch or less, Stanford, 1 to 2 inches of snow. So lower elevations, not quite as much, but you could get more than what they're saying. These totals could increase. Head on over to like the Salt Lake City, just the Utah region. Salt Lake City, going for about an inch or two. Not a whole lot, but you don't have to get very far outside the city to start to see several inches to over a feet of snow. But it'll be cold enough in this setup that where even Salt Lake City will get a little accumulating snow from this. We'll just see if these totals do increase. We just have to watch this. And then we look at my folks here in Denver. As of now, right now, this goes out, how far does this go out? Let's go out all the way till 5 a.m. local time Wednesday. Okay, calling for 2 to 3 inches of snow already in Denver. You just get a little bit into the foothills, the predicted snowfall totals, escalate pretty quickly. Castle Rock, 2 to 3 inches of snow, and of course, once you get into the higher elevations of the Rockies, a lot more. Aspen, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Typical stuff here. And we do need to watch, like northeast and even just eastern sections of Colorado. We'll have to watch to see if these snow totals do increase for these areas. This only goes out to 5 a.m. Wednesday, but there's going to be a lot of strong winds associated with this too, guys. Keep that in mind. We're actually going to show that now. And I know that once again, this is a very widespread look at this, but the common theme here, this is predicted wind gust from the National Weather Service between now and Wednesday evening. The common theme, a lot of winds, a lot of strong winds out west, especially the Rockies, which is right into here with this trough dropping down. Guys, we're talking about over 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible. Not sustained, but just gusts. It's going to be very windy in Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, and New Mexico. And then even getting into the high plains of western Texas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, even very windy into Kansas also. But, 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible, like in Amarillo. Very windy in Denver, guys. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm actually kind of surprised there's not more like blizzard warnings issued from this, but we'll have to see. We'll have to watch for this. So we might get some movement from winter storm warnings to blizzard warnings by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. But very windy times. Just that's the common theme. The further higher up you are in elevation out west, the stronger the winds are. So we move into the central U.S. and we'll kind of move through this relatively quickly because I don't want to compare model guidance too much. We're kind of close enough that we can just stick with one model. So we'll look at the European, and we're starting off tomorrow night, the middle of the night. We got snow flying around even outside the Rockies in Montana, Wyoming, area of snow with this associated low along this cold front, making its way through the north central U.S. in the form of some snow in northern South Dakota, North Dakota. Then some snow starts to move into northern sections of Minnesota. This could be moderate to heavy. In fact, there's winter storm watches up for these areas. Kind of surprised. But they do have winter storm watches up for a few counties, just like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, in North Dakota and Minnesota, where they're calling for several inches of snow up here. We'll zoom into that here in a second. But this low continues to head on off, and then immediately another low right in here. And this is getting into Tuesday afternoon, 21Z Tuesday afternoon, 21Z. That just think of that as the afternoon hours. That's a Zulu time. I know that gets very confusing. We'll go into that another time. But you got this low right here, kind of making its way in. This low right in here is bringing ingredients up for a severe weather threat for like the Midwest, Illinois, areas of like Missouri, maybe as far north as southern sections of Wisconsin. We'll have to watch oozing a little bit into Indiana. But the theme is the chance for severe weather, as far as how significant it could be, has really dropped off some. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to get any severe weather, but it just doesn't look like we're having the best overlapping of ingredients with this system as we potentially could have. This never looked like a super high-end event, at least it didn't in my opinion. But it always had a chance to be a pretty significant event. But as of now, this is downtrending, which is good news, very good news. But this low moves in, okay, and creates that severe weather potential sometime Tuesday night into the overnight hours, maybe getting all the way into our Wednesday morning. Okay, and then we have to watch what this low does in Michigan. This could bring some significant winter weather events for areas of like the UP of Michigan, just the Great Lakes region. The euro is actually downtrended. When I'm about to show you the GFS, it's actually uptrended. But then there's another low. This is getting into our Wednesday morning, and it's not so much of a low. There's no point. I've been focusing so much on surface lows, but it's really just a progression of a pretty powerful cold front, with a lot of advection getting pulled out ahead of it. But on the cold side of this, there's precipitation getting thrown back into the cold side of this. We're getting, and I want to back it up a little bit, we're getting some snow even flying around in northern Kansas, maybe even up into Omaha, Nebraska. This looks very light in nature, but this is going to be some pretty chilly air. So some light accumulations are likely. But you got some snow flying around the wee hours of the morning, Wednesday morning in northern Missouri, and it even brings a light snow event into Chicago sometime Wednesday morning, with some heavy wintry precipitation, whether that's ice, sleet, whatever it is, snow, into northern lower Michigan. And then this finally heads on off. Okay? So we look at snowfall from this. This is the National Weather Service. It does bring kind of a corridor from like a 2 to 3-4 inches of snow. This could increase from eastern North Dakota through northern Minnesota. Northern Minnesota, like up the International Falls, you guys could get a little bit more snow from this, like maybe 3 to 6 inches of snow. We'll have to watch. And then as the cold front progresses south, this is when we could get a little bit of light snowfall accumulations from the next low that kind of flies through as the cold front sags to the south. This could bring a dusting of snow. We could see some increases in this area, but that's kind of the other corridor of light snow that we could see right into here. Okay, now The Great Lakes region, I mentioned there is a winter storm risk. I still think there is. But you look at the Euro, it's not as significant as it was when we showed it this morning. It's kind of dropped off a little bit, and that is because this low is weakening, which in response, we're having a kind of a downtrend with the severe weather threat because we have a weaker surface low. I think that has a lot to do with it here. But we're getting into the wee hours of the morning, Wednesday morning. We still are dealing with some sort of icing event down here. There's a kind of just some light winter weather down into the Midwest too. But then this low will try to strengthen somewhat. See, it's a 990 low heading off to the east side of Lake Huron. And this shows a nasty icy mix in northern lower Michigan, even into the UP of Michigan, with some light to moderate snow into the UP. And then it continues to try to head on off, kind of gets blocked in place, and we just could deal with kind of a wintry middle of the week for the Great Lakes region. Now, I will tell you, the GFS is a little bit more juiced up. Okay, here it comes. GFS, 989 millibar low over lower Michigan sometime in the middle of the night, Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Therefore, we're waking up Wednesday morning to an all-out wintry mess, especially in the eastern half of the UP. And yeah, we just got to watch this. We got to watch this over the next day or two for sure. But, snowfall between now and Wednesday evening, which I think is about the duration of the event. They're already calling for several inches of snow in the UP of Michigan from this. Light amounts point south. This isn't anything significant for your guys' standards up here, but the thing I am concerned about is a little bit of ice mixing with this. I want to see if these predicted ice accumulations do increase to maybe like a tenth of an inch of ice or more. That's when you're starting to mix a tenth of an inch of ice with a few to several inches of snow. You handling the several inches of snow ain't a big deal, but once you start to mix it with a little bit of ice, it becomes a tricky deal and a slippery deal, that's for sure. So we'll watch the icing trends with this up here from my folks here in the Great Lakes region. But there is that severe weather risk. There's that slight risk. It's still very broad. I would not be surprised if this shrinks even more as we wake up tomorrow morning. So you do still got the level 2 out of 5 risk. No jump up to an enhanced risk. I don't expect that, but I've said that before when all of a sudden things dramatically increased right before the system. We've seen it. It happens almost every storm season, spring storm season. So we still got the slight risk right in here. Includes Chicago, Peoria, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, St. Louis, all the way almost down to Springfield, Missouri. Okay. Right now, that just means there's a 15% risk of severe weather. We take a look at the NAM, right? We take it all the way to Tuesday afternoon. Sometime around 6 p.m., local time here in the Midwest, some storms fire up along kind of the Illinois, Iowa, Missouri border right in here. We got some storms firing up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Few to several hour period of storms that kind of make its way through central and northern sections of Illinois. Even a little bit of storm action up to Janesville, Wisconsin. And these storms make it all the way into Chicago. And then we got some storms right at the end of the NAM that tries to get going. And I think that this is right at midnight, Tuesday night. I think this is the beginning stages of a line of storms that begins to continue to sweep into the Ohio Valley and the Mid-South. I don't think this line of storms is going to be like some crazy, ridiculously strong line of storms, but I do think it needs to be watched. I really do. But you want to watch these initial storms up here. And we're not quite in range of the HRRR model. I do think with a lot of cold air nearby, I mean, you see, it for example, it's storming in the far southeast corner of Iowa on the latest NAM around 6 p.m., and it's snowing in the northwest corner. Severe storms potentially on the southeast corner, snow on the northwest corner of Iowa. Okay? So that tells me there's a lot of cold air nearby. So what does that tell me? Cold air loft. It means that these could be some hailers. I think we're going to have some hailstorms with this setup. I honestly think that might be the biggest threat with this. And I really think, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, it's working now. I really think, one of the biggest trends we've seen is a downtrend of the low-level jet. Okay, this is where the slight risk is right here. So we get all the way into about Tuesday afternoon. You don't have a lot of winds in the low levels of the atmosphere, which is good. Okay, it increases right as we are getting right to sundown. We got this 30 to 40 knot low-level jet that's making its way through Missouri and Illinois. But guys, it really spikes here for a very brief period, and then it heads on off. And basically, this is the cold front right in here. changing the wind directions in the low levels of the atmosphere because the cold front comes in. Obviously, the winds shift from the north and come out like around the north and northwest. So I really think there's a displacement here from ingredients, and I just don't think there's a big window either. So this moves in and then begins to progress eastward, and you're probably going to have some sort of line of storms right in here, and it will have some wind energy to work with. We'll zoom into that here in a second. But you look at the dew points with this too, a thermodynamic, and look, these are dew points, not temperatures. Look at how dramatic it goes from somewhat moist air into the Boot Hill, Missouri, up into Illinois, into almost Arctic dry air. And here it is right here. So, this is Tuesday evening, right around dinner time. You're getting dew points right into the 60s for a brief period of time. Low-level jets trying to strengthen right into here also. But, the cold front moves in so fast, it really just basically relaxes the atmosphere. So you don't have a very prolonged period to see a severe weather. I think you'll have a chance as kind of everything kind of briefly kind of meets together. But I really think this is trended downward. And then just dry, stable air kind of surges in behind this. It's a pretty strong cold front, guys. It really is going to be very, very cold for about a day or two in the Midwest, and then it warms back up. So we watch kind of the extension of the NAM and how this energy sort of comes together. And here it is. We're getting into Wednesday morning. And check out how this develops into a line of storms midday Wednesday. And, we're not in the range of the short-range model guidance, but to me, this looks like some sort of line of storms associated with a cold front. And you're going to have some wind energy as the low-level jet will be ramping up ahead of this. Pretty stout one, too. So this line of storms, as it heads into the west side of the Appalachian Mountains, fully into the Apps, could be producing some damaging winds. I could see a slight risk for Wednesday for damaging winds right into here. We'll have to watch. And then cold air quickly catches it up with it. But, we're going to be lacking severe weather ingredients up here for sure. And then it kind of progresses. So, and moving into the east, I'm watching this antifront setup that I talked about a little bit in this morning's video, right? As we were getting into our Wednesday, here's the Euro, which is pretty much what I just showed you, but it's a different way to look at it from Weatherbell. And no doubt do I think that we're going to get some rain switching to snow in the interior Northeast, even the higher elevations all the way down, maybe all the way down to the southern Apps of Tennessee and North Carolina. I just don't think this is going to be a significant deal. I really don't. I'm buying more of a Euro scenario with this, not try to be a Debbie Downer on my winter weather fans, but I do think we're going to get rain changing to snow in the interior Northeast sometime Wednesday night into Thursday morning, but I don't think this is going to be a significant event. We will compare this up against the GFS. GFS still is showing, as we were getting into like Wednesday evening, rain switching to snow in extreme eastern Tennessee, western Virginia, West Virginia, even like western sections of Pennsylvania like Pittsburgh, even some snow a little bit here in eastern Ohio. But even that has kind of downtrended a little bit. So we'll have to see if this uptrends tomorrow, but we're kind of running out of time for trends. So it needs to figure itself out. But I do think interior and Northeast snow is possible. I don't think it's going to be a huge event for you folks, but I think it will be like just your typical kind of rain switching to snow event up here, but just not a dominant all winter weather kind of event. So we will watch that, guys. And we will, all I'm going to do is look at the European ensemble signal from this. If you look at it, that's about all we get. This is in 48-hour periods, and that's all you get right here. It's not much. And, even the interior Northeast, a couple inches max on the European ensemble. Not a very strong signal from this. So we will continue to watch this. We'll see if this uptrends. There's a system right behind this that I have not talked about much, but we'll have to watch this moisture kind of coming out the Gulf as we were getting into the end of this work week. I'm getting into like a Thursday night and Friday. There could be some cold air kind of lingering around, kind of departing, fleeting. It's a fleeting air mass. Might be entrenched in place just enough that we might have an icing scenario we need to watch for these favored CAD regions. I'm not talking about like down to Columbia or Atlanta, but kind of in like the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains. As this precipitation moves in, the Euro's not really buying it. It just shows all rain, a cold rain too. But sort of with some cold air still kind of trying to get thrown back into here. We got to watch this precipitation late Friday and the Saturday morning. Okay. The European not showing much, and I really think this is the beginning of a very rainy pattern to start our March here in the southeast. Speak on that when we need to here. The GFS is a lot more excited about this. It brings the and the reason it is because it brings the precipitation in much faster. The Euro does not get it into here until like Friday night, Saturday morning. The GFS brings this in Friday morning, the first day of March. Therefore, there's still more cold air hanging out around, and you're getting a little bit of icing showing up in the higher elevations of like North Carolina. And you got a winter weather event showing up on the GFS from Fort Virginia. It's not very long. You lose the cold air influence, and it all switches to rain. But that is something we need to watch for. And then there's this, and we'll wrap it up with this. There is a big event that's creating a lot of chatter out there in the weather world. We got a lot of energy that's going to basically enter the western U.S. to kind of end the last day, basically to end February and to start March. You can see it looks like you're, deja vu. You're getting another kind of similar looking storm that we're about to deal with here out west. This brings probably a substantial winter storm out west, moves in, huge trough, becomes negatively tilted, surface low right here deepens rapidly. And yes, that is a 977 millibar low, ejecting off the Rockies, bringing a ton of low-level moisture evecting to the north, and something like this would create a major winter storm and just a major storm system in general. And there's no point in getting super detailed on this. It's literally 1 week out. It's under 1 week out from when it moves into the lower 48, but in general, this is just something we watch for now. But something like this would promote a significant severe weather threat. As this thing totally gets negatively tilted, dynamics max out here, and we get a very powerful storm system in the middle of the country. And then the GFS, kind of the same deal. I mean, not quite as crazy, and it's a little bit further north, but in the timing is a little bit faster. But, this happens more so kind of in the Saturday. Low pressure kind of coming out the northern plains right in here, and it kind of does something very similar, but it's just further north. Therefore, it probably is lacking more thermodynamics. But you can see what happens here very well. And I forgot to pull my cursor up, so I kind of do this. But here comes this trough. It digs in, quickly gets that neutral tilt, and then it goes negatively tilted right into here. You see how this thing's kind of tilting like this? I can't draw on it. I forgot to pull up my cursor thing. But this thing goes negatively tilted. When storm systems go negatively tilted like this, dynamics max out, meaning you get very dynamic weather. Usually some sort of severe weather threat, and of course probably a winter storm, because it's still, at this point, early March. We still got cold air around. And the only thing you can look at this rate, guys, is a low-level moisture and then probably a mid-level jet. And as you can tell, you're getting into Sunday on the Euro. Then you get into Sunday evening. Look at this dry line setting up. Look at the dew points getting pulled all the way into the 50s, all the way up into the plains. And yeah, you get a pretty significant severe weather threat from this, guys. Look at all that low level moisture getting yanked in all the way up into the U.S.-Canadian line. And then, of course, you look at the 500 millibar jet. Here it comes. See that negative tilt? Oof. That would be a very significant severe weather threat right into here. So we continue to watch this. Don't want to talk that to death. There's no point in freak anybody out with this. But if something like this was to play out, yes, we would be dealing with a significant severe weather threat right now, a week from today. But we will continue to watch this. God bless all y'all. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.